Being a founder of a company that was profitable within months of its existence and continues to lead the pack in its sector some 25 years later makes a story of belief, spirit, resilience and opportunity. Dr. Frank Levinson has curated some critical episodes during his tenure as founder, Chief Technology Officer and Chairman at Finisar. Presenting for the Leadership Series, Dr. Frank Levinson.
I started a company in 1988 called Finisar, and it was in the area of fiber optics and communications. And today it's the largest fiber optic company of its sort in the world, so it turned out well. But, and 11 years after we started it in 1988, we had our IPO on the NASDAQ. And all the time the company was in existence from 1988 till 1999, we were profitable. Unlike many startups that have to sort of figure out what they're going to do and make their products and then be profitable, we were profitable from the beginning. Then the dot-com crash came. And with that came also the crash of fiber optics. And many of the biggest companies out there in fiber optics, Finisar was not yet that big, lost a tremendous amount of sales and customers and all sorts of things. It was a very traumatic period. But even as it was crashing in the spring of 2000, we continued to have record quarters, one after another. And then in the spring of 2001, our sales fell off eventually too. At that time, in May of 2001, we had all of our employees in the United States. We used some subcontract manufacturers, one in Singapore where we're having this interview, and one in Thailand. But we had all of our employees were still in the US. In May of 2001, we bought a factory in Ipoh, Malaysia, which is just north of Kuala Lumpur a ways, and began setting up our own operations over here. And 3 years later, 86% of Finisar's employees were in Asia. So it was a very big transformation for us, not just in Malaysia, but also in Singapore and also in Shanghai. So that was the big transformation. None of the other fiber optic companies ended up with their own factory. So everybody else had factories, or many of them did, and sold them. So we were clearly counter-trend. And we did one thing that I think was really unique in doing that decision. And I was an intimate part of it. When we bought the factory, I was there personally and talking with the governor of the state of Perak and with the people that would help us and so on. And my partner, who was the CEO of the company at that time, and I was the chairman of the board, he didn't visit that factory for another year or two. It took a while. But I was there from before we bought it till through that time. One of the decisions we made that was really unique was to have the factory, to have our presence over here in each case, be not run by expats or expatriate people from the United States, but run by people in the country, and to really make them feel like they were partners in our company and not just some guys from the United States. I'm fond of saying some old white guys telling these guys what to do. So the factory that we bought was one of two sister factories, twin factories. One was in Penang and one was in Ipoh, which was eventually ours. At the time, Seagate, the disk drive maker, built these two factories. They had built it 3 or 4 years earlier for $150 million. And we bought it, fully facilitized, all the equipment. They just walked away for $10 million. And it was huge. It was nearly 1 million square feet. And the labor was there, that they had trained. So they had people that were called Six Sigma Black Belt, which means they knew how to do very high quality work, and others that were ISO 9000 and environmental certified. They had all sorts of certifications. And so in that way, we learned from them when they said, well, this is how you run a really high quality factory. Every time words like that came out, we listened because we didn't know. And on the other hand, when we said, well, this is how you build a fiber optic module, and this is how its principles that you tested and so on, then they listened. And I think there was that give and take of. I think looking back, I think it helped that they had things to teach us because they knew more about running that factory. Several of them had worked for the previous owner of that factory that we ended up buying, and they were very talented. And there were times when we would say, let's look at this and this, and how can we be progressive? Because we knew, when you can have people of different points of view, that cultural friction actually makes you better. But we didn't realize how far-reaching it would be, how much it would change us. Many others that had factories, they had to hire people in the U.S. and then they'd place them in the factory, and they'd have to move their families over and have to find schools for them, and that was traumatic for the family and so on. Or if the family didn't come, the husband or wife was away from their spouse and the children for long periods. We had none of that. If people wanted to work in the factory, for whatever experience, they could, but they wouldn't be paid expat wages. They would retain their U.S. salary, but we wouldn't boost it up. We would say, no, there's no school. Wow, there's this. If you want to go, go. But we trust the people there. And it was a very empowering thing. It was a decision that has paid benefits to this very day. And it did so because treating people like that, it empowered them. They thought, wow, this is, it's one thing to say to someone, well, what do you think? It's another thing to say is, we're counting on you. The stuff that we have to deliver this month, this quarter, whatever, either you're a part of that delivery or you're not, And so, and they really stepped up every time. And to me, it was always delightful. And it wasn't just that they were hands making things. I mean, that's sort of the vision of Asia factories. But we put engineering things over here as well, failure analysis and other problems, getting the yields of our products better. And as we did that, again, the people here realized these were real engineering problems. We weren't giving them the problems we didn't want to do, or they were just beneath us. We were giving them problems that we thought were challenging, but we thought they were the better people to solve. So it was that trusting in people that I think really made it successful. So as the volumes surge, our profitability surges because we can decide what we decide to make ourselves and what we outsource. Anything you put at the subcontract place is efficiently done, but if you're running a good factory, not as cheap as your factory because they still have to be profitable. Again, it sounds simple. We were only in the U.S. in May 2001, 3 years later, 86% in Asia. But it was a very traumatic change. And it changed the character of our company. And today, Finisar is the most profitable fiber optic company.